Hey everyone, I'm Pastor Alec,
I'm Eli.
and we're back talking about First Kings. So, Eli, what do you got for me today?
I'm on chapter 9 now.
Okay,
Right now.
making your
And,
way through.
yeah. And so reading down to verse 12.
Okay, now chapter 9,
Um,
there's 22. I just had to double check. There's 22 chapters in Kings.
yeah.
So we're almost halfway through here. So,
Right.
all right, so what verse did you say?
Verse 12.
Okay,
So, talking about the city that Solomon gave to Hiram, and Hiram said that they didn't please him, but they still gave him 120 talents of gold.
yeah.
Do you know, like, what if Solomon did something to please him, or if he just gave him the gold for the city anyways?
Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. So let's go. So this is really Solomon's big thing is the temple, right? I think that's kind of a known thing, and that's how it's written about in the narrative.
Right.
His wisdom, and then the temple of God. Okay, and and of course I guess the other part is his empire, and of course people know about his many marriages,
Right.
which seem to be very political too, which end up kind of being his downfall with all of
Yeah.
that, right? Bringing in with when he as an emperor, he also is being very hospitable to other deities,
Yeah.
right? Which becomes problematic. So let's go to verse 10 then. All right. So this is other things that Solomon is getting kind of involved with. So verse 10 says, "At the end of 20 years, in which Solomon had built the two houses, the house of the Lord and the king's house, and Hiram, king of Tyre, had supplied Solomon with cedar and cypress timber and gold, as much as he desired. King Solomon gave to Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee." All right, so this is up north.
Yeah.
This is the area where Jesus and his disciples are from, right? And anyway, so and this is kind of where this makes sense for the king of Tyre to have those cities,
Right.
and you have to think at this point Solomon he's an emperor, so he kind of treats Hiram to be able to give him the cities like that is almost like uh, Hiram is kind of secondary, right?
Yeah.
He's almost like maybe he's treating him kind of like a vassal king at this point, something
Okay.
like that. But when Hiram came from Tyre to see the cities that Solomon had given him, they did not please him. Therefore he said, "What kind of cities are these that you have given me, my brother?" So they are called the land of Kabul to this day. Okay? Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold. All right, so again, this is the he had given. I think it's the why did he give him the money? I think it's just almost like a payment or something.
Yeah.
But he's not happy with what he gets out of the
Okay.
deal. Right?
I didn't know if he like became happy with it or if he just paid him because he gave him cities.
I think he probably had to pay him no matter what. At
Yeah.
that point. I think it's not an even power dynamic there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? So I mean, right here at chapter 15.
Okay. Chapter 15. You're really making your way around here. Okay.
Well, I mean, I was just wondering how advanced was it? Because it's talking about like all the cities that Solomon built. How advanced was Israel like compared to Egypt?
Wait, did you say chapter 15 or verse 15?
Verse 15.
Verse 15,
yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
all right.
sorry.
It's all right. So not jumping as much as I thought, which is good. Okay. So verse 15, chapter 9, verse 15. "And this is the account of the forced labor that King Solomon drafted to build the house of the Lord in his own house, in the Millo, and the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazor, and Megiddo, and Gezer." Okay. Then 16, "Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had gone up and captured Gezer and burned it with fire, and had killed the Canaanites who lived in the city, and had given it as a dowry to his daughter, Solomon's wife." Okay, so that's a city he rebuilds, right?
Yeah.
And so what was the question again about that?
Because it was going on about all like the other cities, and I was just wondering like how advanced Israel was compared to Egypt? Like, were they pretty caught up to Egypt?
At
Would you
this,
say?
well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, at this point, Egypt is kind of, in a lot of ways, has had its day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the pyramids had been around at this point for like 1,500 years.
Yeah.
So the pyramids are ancient even to Solomon.
Right. Okay. That's kind of weird.
So yeah, I mean, Egypt is not going to be a powerhouse. In fact, Egypt is what it is in many ways because of its isolation.
Okay. Yeah.
It ends up being very isolated from the rest of Mesopotamia. You do end up, of course, you have kingdoms south.
Right.
Like Ethiopia is very ancient, and so you've got people to the south that are ancient, very ancient civilizations, but as far as like the Mesopotamian empires, it's isolated from their conquests.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I think of like. I know. Let's say that I know that the Nubians ruled Egypt for some time, and there was again a lot of interaction there to the south of Egypt, but they're isolated from like the Assyrian conquests,
Okay,
and Assyria really is like the first major empire of the world that actually conquers other people.
Is that the same as Syria? With
Yes,
Solomon's.
yes.
I forgot what they called him.
Yeah, well, there's Neo-Assyria. There's like the new Assyria that comes in, and those are the ones that are going to take out the northern kingdom of Israel.
Okay.
But yeah, that land between the Tigris and the Euphrates, that's the first major world empire.
Right.
And so Egypt is kind of isolated from that. So
Okay.
not isolated from Ethiopia or Nubia to the south of them on the African continent, but they're isolated from the first imperialists.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So Egypt kind of maintains its own sovereignty in a lot of ways. And so eventually though the Mesopotamian empires are going to come in. They're going to take Israel and Judah, and then they're going to march into Egypt.
Okay.
And that's going to happen, when these kingdoms fall.
Right.
A few hundred years after Solomon. So Egypt is still is a kind of a powerhouse, but it's not. They're not the biggest powerhouse on the block.
Right. They're like when UCF went 13-0. I don't know why, but that's what that reminded me
That
of.
reminds me.
They're good, but they don't play anybody.
Yeah, that's right. They're good, but they don't play anybody. Don't be shooting out UCF. I had friends that went to UCF. All right. So yeah,
they're like them.
They're good, but yeah, they definitely not playing Assyria yet.
Yeah.
I mean, they do, but they're so distant. They're
Right.
so isolated. But I mean, that's not then to put. I mean, they are still. I mean, they are ruled by Nubians.
Okay.
So like the Nubians in the south definitely rule over the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Right. For some time. So anyway, so Egypt is gonna face the force of this at some point, and then they're gonna be conquered by the Greeks. And after they're conquered by the Greeks, eventually, like, they become very Greek,
Okay.
right? And so
So is that like, when did they get conquered by the Greeks?
this is the conquest of Alexander,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he just takes over. He takes Egypt, and then he also takes the Mesopotamian Empire. He takes all of it.
Wow. Okay.
That's
yeah,
why it's
yeah.
such a big deal.
And
I mean, he
wait.
marches through into North Africa to take Egypt. Really, I mean, it's almost like just to take Egypt and declare himself the son of Ra. And then he goes east to the Mesopotamian empires.
Okay. And then he built the Great Library in Egypt, didn't he?
Well, the city of Alexandria is named after him, and that's where the library is.
Yeah,
in
okay.
Alexandria. was. So yeah, Egypt has a really interesting history, but it is isolated from the stuff that's going on in Mesopotamia just by geography.
Right.
So, yeah, there's always there's always pushback, but it's never there's always fighting between Egypt and these kind of near Asian empires, but there's not a whole lot that's resolved.
Yeah.
They usually don't come. I mean, like the Sinai Peninsula is fought over a lot historically, and even after Alexander's conquests, when when his generals really take control, after he dies, and you've got Seleucus who takes control of Persia and Ptolemy who takes control of Egypt. The Seleucids and the Ptolemies, they would fight with each other. But they never really gained a whole lot of ground on each other. Kind of went back and forth, and of
Right.
course Israel's in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
So they've got to face it all. So even then, you can see the geographic isolation of Egypt from Mesopotamia.
Okay, yeah.
Again, not from Ethiopia, not from Nubia, but from Mesopotamia.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so Egypt kind of remains as it is, but they're going to end up being conquered too, and there is, with Egypt being so close to the empire of Israel, and it really is the Israel empire at that point under Solomon. They kind of they treat Egypt as they've kind of conquered some of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now Egypt's like down here on the Mediterranean, and then Israel's right here.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be like this for the camera.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's make sure it's on the camera.
Right.
Make sure it's right on the camera. But yeah,
Okay, I didn't really think about how close that was.
they're really close to each other.
Yeah.
Oh, they're super close to each other. And again, that Sinai Peninsula is right between them.
Yeah. Okay.
And so when someone says they're going, like in the Old Testament, they're going into Egypt, the question is, all right, where into Egypt?
Right.
Like, what do you consider Egypt at this point?
Where was North Egypt the most populated?
Yeah, I think so. And then
Okay.
down the Nile, maybe.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
Nile Delta into the Mediterranean was
Right.
flourishing.
God, and even now, if you look at a picture like with the lights and everything, it's only down the Nile is where they
Yeah,
live.
well, there's been studies done on the ecology of Egypt and the landscape, and apparently the area, even the Saharan desert might not have been desert at that time,
Right.
right? Like it might have been much more fertile than it is today.
That's weird to think about.
Well,
'Cause
stuff
that means-
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.